So we did it! Our guild cleared Naxxramas week 1 on Classic Anniversary. Leading up to Naxx launch, I had put out a couple guides to help not only our guild week 1, but thought it could be helpful to share some tips for other groups. Things that I'd learned from clearing Naxx on Classic Era well over 60 times on my Restoration Druid. But, being on the other side of a week 1 KT kill in Classic Anniversary, there are things that I've learned about Anniversary Naxx that I want to share. To close the loop on this phase content, and hopefully be of help for groups that continue to work on prog. And if you're one of the groups that is still progging through Naxx, do not be discouraged. As I shared in my first Naxx guide of the Abomination Wing, I had a hunch that Naxx would shock many guilds in Anniversary, and I think it absolutely has. But let's get into what I learned. The first is that your plan is only good until it's not. I shared our Naxx route prior to the raid releasing, where we would be doing the Abomination Wing, and then do Plague Spider with buffs out. Well, on the very first boss pull in Naxx, we wiped Patchwork. Not exactly how we wanted to start. My hope had been to clear Patchwork, all of the Abomination Wing, all of Plague, and Spider in just over maybe an hour, hour and a half. And that was way out the window. We came back in and did a no world buff Naxx Light, consisting of the Spider Wing, the first 2 Plague Wing bosses, and Instructor Razuvious. After killing Instructor Razuvious, we ran and grabbed Head and Heart buffs and came back to the Abomination Wing to clear Patchwork, the rest of the A-Bomb bosses, Lothib, and Gothic. We ended up really strong, I think, and cleared 12 out of 15 within our 3-hour raid window, which was really solid considering how we started and lost world buffs right away. Something of note, we did not end up rebuffing with Rend. We're a Horde guild, by the way, although we could have. It was apparent that there was no way we were going to clear in one day, and we would need to clean up if we wanted to finish in the first week regardless. So instead of wasting one of only a handful of extra red heads we had stored away in our guild, we opted to just get enough firepower with head and heart buffs to clear what we could for the rest of that day. And of course grabbed extra Zanzas, which were very needed. Your raid may have come in with a plan day 1 like us, but I'm curious to know just how many raids went according to their plans. If I had to guess, maybe like 10% of runs. The second is that we wiped more to Instructor Razuvious in Anniversary more than any other boss in week 1 Naxx. In my Death Knight Wing video, I recalled how I had wiped more to Instructor Razuvious on Classic Era than any other boss in the game on Era. Razuvious puts a disproportional weight on 2 priests, and if your priests have never done the mechanic before, it would likely take a couple of tries for them to get it right. This was absolutely the case in our run. We had 3 wipes to Razuvious, 2 wipes on 4 Horsemen, 1 Saph wipe, and 1 Patchwork wipe. Razuvious is the hardest boss, confirmed. And when you look at progress for all of the US and EU, the most common number of boss kills for week 1 was 5. This was likely Spider Wing and the first 2 bosses of Plague Wing. Instructor Razuvious is weirdly difficult until it's not, but it takes reps and your priest becoming comfortable with the mechanics. So if you're getting hard stuck on Razuvious right now, don't be discouraged. Give your priest more reps and be patient with them. They just need to learn it. The third is that in 2019, I think it was really common for guilds to have 2 raid days, but in 2025, guilds really just have 1 raid day. I'm uniquely aware of this in Classic Anniversary, where many guilds did not have a cleanup day scheduled or planned for because they've only been raiding 1 day per week in all of Anniversary. Yet this was so different back in 2019. And maybe it was our group, but it seemed like the vast majority of guilds had at least a 2-day raid schedule for a given team back in 2019 Classic. So many really good guilds were able to hop into week 1 Naxx, but had way less time to get through the instance because they only had 1 day to do Naxx in. They could maybe get 30 people for cleanup raid, but this obviously isn't enough to take down Sapphiron week 1. If your guild only raids 1 day per week, just know that there were less than 60 guilds across the US and EU who cleared the raid in 1 sitting week 1. And less than 25 guilds in just the United States who did it in 1 day. So if you're a guild that only had 1 raid day, it was very unlikely that you were going to be clearing the raid regardless. 4 is that we used our guild bank resources to buy frozen runes, and it paid off. Honestly, this was super helpful, and I've debated whether or not sharing this, but because it was so helpful for us, I think it's worth sharing. One of our officers was responsible for selling resources from the guild bank for the past 2 phases and built up a 24,000 net worth of gold in the bank. We never bought anything using the bank's resources other than maybe like a few flasks for AQ prog for week 1. We now have like 5,000 gold left in our bank and spent almost 20,000 just into frozen runes. And we probably bought them a little too early as prices tanked within the first 24 hours of release, when other guilds realized they wouldn't be on Sapphiron anytime soon and could buy back frozen runes at a multiple. But for us, we were able to obtain 40 to 50 runes in our first raid day, purchase enough so that all of our DPS players could have 6 runes for Sapphiron. We were running 16 healers for Saph, plus a main tank, so we needed 23 players to have 6 runes. This was helpful for them to craft their epic bracers for when we return to Sapphiron and get the glacial legs, or whatever the leg turn-in quest is for 40 frost resistance. Epic frost resistance items make a big difference, and the cost for investment was absolutely worth it to get the Saph and KT loot in the first lockout. Now, I know not all groups have the luxury to reinvest in frozen runes, probably the vast majority did not. But my learning here, more than anything, is that epic frost resistance is simply so important and valuable for Sapphiron. As teams get closer to progging on Saph, don't skimp out on the cheap frost resistance, but get epic quality frost resistance gear. When things start to go wrong, don't let raid leading become a free-for-all. Now, there is a place for trusted players to step up and help with vocal comm. On Gothic, a raid leader isn't on both sides, so having somebody vocal call out something on the other side is great. Having certain people assigned to call out Loatheb spore groups, wonderful. But having other players publicly give their input on given strategies, if you know they aren't helpful or what you want to do, it's not great. After our patchwork wipe, we had one of our DPS players say over comms that we were initiating the pull all wrong, that you shouldn't bull pull patchwork, but you need to run into him to initiate the pull. Now, he was well-intentioned and said this out of a desire to help the team and be the best we can be. I really believe this, 100%. But also, I know as someone who has done Naxx so many times that you can absolutely bull pull, and there's nothing wrong or worse about it. It was just one of those moments where I needed to remind the team that there was nothing wrong about our strategy, and that there were other things in play that led to issues on patchwork for us. Tanks not pre-popping greater stone shields, we didn't have inspiration on tanks, and my being first time on Horde, I saw the ramifications of not having salvation when one of our hateful tanks dodged and parried enough hateful strikes on the opener, where he actually fell out of the top 4 on threat. If you know you have the right plan and strategy for a boss encounter, stay the course and have your raid leader lead the raid. Don't let it become a free-for-all. For Sapphiron, bring more healers, and be smart when you're using your tank's cooldowns. I got a couple comments on my Saph and KT guide that bringing 16 to 17 healers was overkill. Why should I bother bringing that many healers? Well, this is one of those moments where I'm going to be pretty direct to those players who asked me this. How did your strategy work out week 1? Back in 2019 version of Classic, Progress had the world's first KT kill, and they used 18 healers for Sapphiron. The first Horde clear of Anniversary on this time around came from the EU guild called Escaped from Paradise, and they use 15 healers. Now, our guild Daybreak is not a world first racing type of guild. We are not a speedrunning guild either. We had maybe 1 or 2 AQ40s where we went sub-hour, where it was like 58 or 59 minutes. We are not uniquely exceptional by any means. We are not going to be a Saph Polarity type of guild like Five Sunders Please either. So, if the top Horde guild uses 15 healers, I feel pretty confident and comfortable recommending 16 to 17 healers for the average group. What's really nice about Anniversary is that we have dual spec. Our guild runs 3 hybrid players in our 40-man. We have a Feral Druid, an Enhancement Shaman, and an Elemental Shaman. All 3 players knew ahead of time that they would be running with their healed dual spec for Sapphiron, and we brought 13 main spec healers to our Naxx raid just for the normal run anyway. That means we didn't even need to swap players in or out for our raid. We just had a few people swap their specs, and that was it. If you're nervous about Sapphiron, bring additional healers. It is worth it. As an aside, this is just kind of funny, regarding our hybrid specs, our Enhancement Shaman parsed as 0 on kill Thuzad because he was a second enhancement parsed kill on KT Anniversary. The other Enhancement Shaman was at 100% and he was at 0%. So, I just think it was really funny. People may look at our comp and say it's gross we carry so many warriors, but we also carry a few specs and classes that people would call meme specs. In Anniversary, there is more of a place for these specs, knowing that you can have a player swap to heals if needed. This is a big win for Anniversary when compared to 2019 Classic or Era. I would say another win from Sapphiron was the main tank rotating cooldowns after an air phase. This allowed for a little extra cushion for healers to focus on topping off the raid. After the first air phase, our main tank popped his last stand, and after the second air phase, he popped Shield Wall. This was really helpful, particularly Shield Wall, for the healers to have a bit more room to focus on getting the raid up, and it freed the main tank healers to also help with raid heals. So as you are going to prog on Saph eventually, if you can help your tank, or you can direct your tank to time his cooldowns after an air phase, so that healers can have just a little bit more cushion to top off the raid, it was really helpful for us. Keep pressing W and limit trash wipes. One of the things I found to be most proud of from our day 1 Naxx, where we wiped on Patchwork, was just having clean trash. We didn't wipe in Spider, Plague, DK, or A-Bomb Wings on trash at all. People stayed focused, and we got through the trash, which afforded us time to pull bosses, and this was just a huge win in my book. If you are a raid leader, be prepared with even how you pull trash. Avoiding wipes saves a bunch of time. Explain enough, but get pulls in. I could have, and honestly should have, slowed down for our first Patchwork pull to make sure we were all set up. But beyond that, there are just so many bosses in Naxx. We needed to keep moving forward and get pulls in. Something like 4 Horsemen, we wanted to do a couple practice pulls before sending world buffs, just to make sure people could learn rotations. And we explained a little bit about 4 Horsemen, but we did most of the learning through our 2 practice pulls and wipes. Then we sent world buffs and killed them. Sapphiron was similar. We did 1 dry run with no buffs on Sapphiron, and then sent a full world buff pull right away. Both fights are expensive because you're popping a Greater Shadow protection potion on 4 Horsemen, and at least 1 Greater Frost and Greater Shadow on Sapphiron, even for a dry pull. These consumes are expensive on Anniversary. We could have done another dry pull on Sapphiron just to get the mechanics down a little bit more and have more confidence, but we elected to send it, knowing people at least got a feel for how damage was going out, how to spread, and hide behind ice blocks during the air phase. We saw just enough of the fight where it made sense to send buffs, limit the damage done to the consumable cost raiders, and just progress through the raid. Y'all make me nervous as the next. One of my last learnings here feels a little bit silly to share, and it's really a personal learning, but it comes from me being so shocked in how many people would be interested in these Naxx guides I put out. My goal in making the guides was just to really help our guild be best prepared for a week 1 clear of Naxx, and we were successful, which I'm pumped about. But I weirdly put a lot of pressure on myself after publishing these. It's one thing to make videos for your guild, like your guys and the team that you've been rolling with for the past 10 or 11 months. But because I put these videos publicly out on YouTube, I feel like a lot of eyes were on me and how we did. So, like, a little bit about me and the channel. I put our raid VODs on YouTube primarily for our team to see how we did and what we can do differently, improve on, etc. And I also have made Resto Druid guides throughout Anniversary, as I do have an established knowledge and competency through my experience on Classic Era. But I'm not a speedrunner. I'm not an expert raid leader, competing for a top clear, or anything prestigious. I'm also not the top Resto Druid on Classic Era. Honestly, I'm just pretty average. I'm a guy who likes Classic and Classic Resto Druid, and posts things here and there just for my personal enjoyment. Had we not cleared week 1 Naxx, it would have been just fine. But it does feel nice to know that the pressure I put on myself was off my shoulders. So, anyway, I hope these tidbits or learnings from our Anniversary progression, or just kind of my reflections, are helpful or interesting. My last note would be a reiteration to the majority of players watching this. If your raid didn't clear week 1, don't freak out. The median guild cleared 7 bosses week 1, and most guilds have cleared 5 bosses in Naxxramas. 5 out of 15 is the most common point of progression. I don't care if people say, oh, the raid's been out for 20 years, or whatever. Naxx is extremely punishing for small mistakes. And with 40 people, small mistakes happen. Show up for your raid team, keep getting stronger week after week, and you will get there. It's only going to make your group's first KT kill all the sweeter. And there's nothing like the feeling in achieving a hard-earned goal alongside your guild brothers. Thanks.
Oof.
That's okay. Y'all were stacked a little too close. Good fucking job, guys. Awesome.
Nice.
Week
job.
1. Way to
Big
go.
shit,
Just said a bad word.
Way to go.
Yeah.
Anybody? I
And
clipped
it's
it.
Guys,
recorded.
that is the 10th U.S. horde kill. Clear. Good job. Y'all did great.
Top
Very
10 boys.
Very
This
nice.
garbage fucking loot.
Shit
Nice
was-
wand.